What's up guys, your boy Dabuz'S here, and guess what? My 8-part series of Guys on How to Get Better at Smash is up on Medify right now, along with other content, including content I'm actively making right now, an AMA thread, and more. So check it out if you want to get better at the game. It's awesome, highly produced, shout out some editors in for it, and today's video is actually going to be the neutral guide from this 8-part series. Hope you enjoy. Peace! What's up guys? It's your boy Dabuz'S here, and we got the next video in the series of teaching you how to play Smashy Bros well. And today we're going to be talking about neutral. We're going to go over a lot of concepts in a short period of time, so I hope you're paying attention. First thing we're going to talk about is spacing. This is the core of neutral, right? Is understanding where you should and shouldn't be. I always tell people in Ultimate, it's more important to position well than use the right attacks. As a platform fighter, your movement, your positioning is the most difficult, ubiquitous skill you are going to constantly be learning. Even pro players are still working on their ability to position and move properly. And when it comes to spacing, good rule of thumb is you want to know your max range and play around your max range. Especially on your aerials. Aerials in Ultimate tend to be very strong, and most characters are really playing towards spacing their falling aerials to safely pressure their opponent. When I say max range, the max range in your attacks isn't just the actual range in the attacks. It's the range on your attacks plus the range on your movement. So I'm playing Palutena, my back air is this much range. But if I jump in at my opponent, my back air actually has that much range, right? The range on my jump in plus the back air. Or let's say I'm near the opponent, I can back air in place, sure, but that's too close. It's not max range, is easier to punish. Where if I were to jump back here, I cover all this range. It's much safer, right? And that's gonna apply to everything. Tilt, this down tilt doesn't reach, but walk up down tilt reaches. It's like that doesn't reach, but walking up here it does reach, right? So knowing where you can initiate attacks from is very important. Another concept very related to this also is playing at ranges where your attack is unpredictable. This is a common thing I see from people where they have a big attack and they are really easy to read because they keep playing at the range of that big attacks. Like Palutena, she has this back air. This back air is great. But if a Palutena player is always jumping in and back airing from this range, I know at this range, she's going to back air. But also, by knowing how Palutena works, I know that at this range, she doesn't have many other options immediately. Dash attack won't reach. Tilts obviously won't reach. Projectiles can reach, but they're really slow and punishable. Like if they whiff, someone can roll in versus explosive flame, yada yada. The point is, she's kind of predictable if she chooses to attack here. So what you want to do with most characters is find ranges where you have multiple options. From here, for example, Palutena, tilts reach, dash attack reaches, grab reaches, run up narrow reach, and back air still reaches. So the idea is I'm going to be playing in kind of a place where I can move into that ambiguous range. Like I might be playing here with Palu, and then I'll move into this, and when I move into this range, this is when I'm going to start attacking a lot, right? I'm going to be like playing neutral, yada yada yada. Oh, it dashed in. Okay, now I can jump. And it's up to you to figure out what that range is for your character. They're all different in that regard. But yeah, you're generally going to be moving in and out of that ambiguous range. Another important concept, burst ranges. Most characters have a pretty good dash attack in Ultimate. And most dash attacks function as punish tools. Where, let's say the opponent misses an attack, dash attack is a good way to punish them for missing that attack. It's really important in Ultimate with most characters to move around, bait out the opponent's attack, especially if they're like a long range character like a Swordy, and you're a character like Fox, to run in, bait out that attack at a range they want to swing from, dash out, dash and dash attack. So just always keep that in mind. They don't tend to be that rewarding on hit or anything. They tend to be very laggy if you don't connect with them. But they're meant to be, oh, I know this is a guaranteed hit if I react to you doing something. Another thing that's similar is using your shield. Shielding is the most powerful tool in Ultimate. Universally, shield is the best button you can press. Comes out frame 1, blocks every attack, only loses 2 grabs. And you can activate shield pretty quick. Shield grabbing in Ultimate has 4 frame extra startup. So let's say your character has a 7 frame grab normally. If your shield gets hit and you grab, it's frame 11, which is very slow. That's why shield grabbing is kind of a bad option. But meanwhile, jumping at a shield has 3 frames start because of jump squat, and most aerial characters have fast aerials in this game. Palutena has like frame 5 neutral air, very fast. But the point is, since shield blocks so many attacks, a lot of times you can just block an attack, do whatever. And there's kind of 2 ways to shield. There is defensive shielding, where you mess up your spacing, your opponent gets to apply their offense. A lot of times good players are going to hit your shield at like safe spacings or whatever. Jumping away after blocking an attack, resetting the positioning, losing some space, pretty good. And then there is a run-up shield, where you want to aggressively get in your opponent's face. Like, I run up here, expect my opponent to attack in response. I'm now point blank, they didn't space well, and then I can do an attack at a shield to get my pressure going. Those tend to be kind of the 2 like uses for shield. There's a lot more nuance. You're going to be constantly shielding. But yeah, keep that in mind, is that you generally need to position your shield aggressively to get punishes on good players at a shield. Another important thing when it comes to spacing, and I showed this before with knowing like jump in range, but understanding how much a character can drift. A character like Palu, she jumps and I can jump back. Like I can jump forward and jump back, right? So I can make this jump kind of unpredictable. Where a character like Roy, kind of when he jumps, he's very committed to a jump, so you can react to his jump. But then a character like Peach, when she jumps, she has very high air acceleration, so she's able to jump and drift really far back no matter what her initial jump momentum was. The final, like, I guess part of spacing we're going to talk about is projectiles. Now, projectiles vary a lot across the board. I can't go over all of them. But a good rule of thumb is projectiles are meant to control space, and for almost every character, their projectile is a key part of their game, right? You got things like Palutena projectiles, which hers are, they're really meant to stop the opponent from moving. She does it, you get hit by them, and next time you see this, you want a shield, and then when Palutena positions here, expecting you to shield a projectile, she can go, am I gonna projectile? Am I gonna neutral B? Nope, gonna run up grab, because you're shielding. Same with side B, right? You're gonna expect her to do this, you shield it, and then instead of doing this, she runs up and she nairs you, for example. So yeah, there's space control moves. And then you have ones like Mario where, you know, he does a fireball. And the idea is he can move behind it, right? He controls space, but he's not controlling space to lock the opponent down. He's controlling space so he can run behind it, get in your face, and apply his really strong close range pressure. And like there's a lot with the projectiles, as I said. Just try to figure out what space they control and what they do with your character. Now let's get on to another kind of like concept of the neutral, and that is attack interactions. One of the most, I think, unintuitive but unimportant parts of Smash is rising aerials versus falling aerials. So rising aerial means you're jumping with the aerial, right? Short hop macro aerials. Falling aerial means, as it implies, you're falling with the aerial. You normally want to fast fall with them. Sometimes you slow fall so you can drift a bit more before landing. You want to hit falling aerials. Most characters can combo off of falling aerials very easily. Like most characters get their best combos off of hitting falling aerial into really imagination. And they also tend to be safer on block because you're hitting the ground just as the aerial comes out. So that's why you're trying to hit these. They're more rewarding and they're safer. A lot of times if you hit someone's like shield with a falling aerial, you can like press another button afterwards and it's hard for them to do anything about it. They have to hold that block, which can be really scary because then you can start doing things like falling aerial, and keep the pressure going. But yeah, so that's your goal for most characters, is land those falling aerials. Rising aerials tend to be kind of the counter to falling aerials though, because it takes time to short hop falling aerial or full hop falling aerial. Rising aerials come out pretty much immediately, right? So this interaction happens a lot, where someone reads the falling aerial, they run up, they do a rising aerial, they stuff it out. And the problem with rising aerials is you trade speed for safety and reward. Most characters don't get nearly as much damage on hitting a rising aerial as a falling aerial, right? Like if I hit like this rising back air, for example, I get some damage, I get positioning, it's not bad, but it's not rewarding. And if I were to whiff this, I'm in all this lag, right? I do this, I land, I shield. So that's kind of the dynamic, is you use that as a call out, but it's something you don't want to do as much. Or maybe you could do something like you can rising aerial, drift back with it to make it safe, but then you're losing space, so it's not as rewarding. But yeah, you're gonna see this interaction a lot. A lot of the strongest characters in Ultimate do have rising aerials they can combo off of, so keep that in mind. Also, and one of the reasons that Show Presser is so good is that when you hit someone's shield, A lot of people respond to the shield getting hit with a rising aerial. So if you hit someone's shield block with the rising aerial, you can then punish that rising aerial. Now I will say, any hit is a good ultimate. Ultimate's a game about advantage state. Don't worry too much if you're struggling to hit falling aerials and good players. You can turn rising aerials into good advantage regardless. And we'll talk about that in a future video. Now, grabbing. I see people spam grabs. I've seen some people, they just always shield grab. They always look for grabs in neutral. And they always tell me it's because of combos. They can get consistent combos off grabs. While that is true, grabs tend to be the worst attacks in the game universally. The only reason grabs are good is 1, you can get consistent combos off of them, and 2, they beat shield, sure. And I always tell people, if you're going for grab, you want to grab as a reaction to shield specifically. If you see someone's shield pop up and you're in range to grab them, go for it, sure. But going for hard read grabs tends to not be worth it. Now, why are they bad? Using Mario as an example. My jab is frame 3 with Mario, and it covers this much range. Not the most range, but pretty fast. Also low lag, right? No lag pretty much. Now, compare that to his grab, frame 6. So, it has about the same range as his jab in this case, but comes out 3 times as slower. And if I whiff this grab, look at this lag. Significantly more than this jab. And if I do a dash grab, it's even worse. Comes out almost 5 times slower than his jab in this case. Or, if you compare it to his dash attack is frame 6, dash grab's frame 9, has significantly less range than the dash attack, and significantly more lag. So, yeah, grabs, they lose to other attacks, and they're poor by every single metric relative to attacks. So you want to play neutral almost entirely with attacks and save grabs for specific situations, I'd say. Very common mistake. Alright, so there's lots of different attacks in this game, but I'm going to try to categorize attacks by 2 types. Close range and disjoints. Disjointed attacks are like swordy attacks, Palutena back air. There's attacks that they have a hitbox separate from the character's hitbox. So like if someone like swings at, let's say, my back air, right, my shield, they're just going to lose to it. Or let's say this was like a cloud back air, right? That sword range they're going to beat like other attacks. They're not really in risk of that back air getting hit. These attacks tend to, however, have the weakness of slower startup and more lag. So you can run up and you can intercept them. You can let them whiff and then you can punish their lag. And they tend to not be as rewarding on a hit. Close range attacks. Things like what Mario has, where he has low range, but his attacks come out really fast. They have like no lag whatsoever. And on hit, they tend to be extremely easy to combo off of, extremely rewarding. But the thing is, you have to get in the opponent's face. You gotta use your shield. You have to whiff punish. You have to find angles they're not swinging at. And so when you're playing, I think in most matchups, one character is gonna have a range advantage over the other one. So you have to figure out, are you the one that's supposed to space and keep the opponent out in the matchup? Or are you the character that needs to get in and assert your buttons to win the matchup? But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're fighting a swordy versus character like Mario is, what is the general weakness of their moveset? Is it the range, or is it the frame data? Alright, stage control. This is a very important concept. Every single character, every single matchup, doesn't matter. General rule of thumb is the more center you are towards the stage relative to your opponent, the better. Just your opponent has less options, right? Let's say I'm center stage as Paladin and Mario's in the corner. If he runs back, he's now at the edge of the stage, right? He can't run back to evade my attacks. Like if I'm spacing it back here and he's in the corner, he can't go anywhere to avoid this. He has to deal with it. Whereas, if the inverse would happen, I were trying to back air Mario, he could just run back to make my attack whiff and get a punish. Or to position for setting up fire, whatever he wants. So the idea is, the more space you have, the less space your opponent has to work with avoiding attacks. If you get hit and you're in the corner, this could be an edge guard. But let's reverse the situation. Let's say you're in the corner and your opponent has stage control and you hit them. I hit the Mario here. He's still on stage. I can't edge guard him. I can't ledge trap him. Effectively hitting the Mario here, because he had stage control, he's still playing neutral. I have to win another interaction to get my advantage state going. So yeah, having stage control allows you to take more risks because they're less risky, and it gives you greater reward on landing your hits. So really, when you watch top level play, watch how much the player currently winning is center stage, right? You'll watch players like just be between these platforms, throwing at hitboxes, you know, backing up when they need to, and then taking space whenever they can, while if they land that hit, you know, it's almost advantage state. When you have center state, screen control, it's essentially advantage state. Let's talk about platforms real quick. Platforms are nice because they really deny the opponent's approach and allow you to pressure. Like if I'm under a platform here, the Mario, he can't fall up at me, or if I'm inversely, Palutena, she can't fall up back here at me. Platform blocks it. You know, I could short hop, but then my attack angle is really predictable, right? Or if I'm throwing projectiles, you know, I know they have to run through these projectiles as a result. So it's a great spot to stand from. And if I want to, I could always jump on this platform and then pressure with attacks really quickly because, oh, I don't need to jump anymore. Being on this platform effectively removes the time needed to jump, and I just get to do this, or I can do this, right? I could even jump off of it. But yeah, so having platform control is huge for every character, and most of the time you're going to want to position kind of under and behind platforms or on top of the platforms if your opponent's like in front of them. Control space pretty much. And finally, just keeping a certain distance from your opponent, right? Like if I'm center stage but my opponent's here, like I should be closer, because even though I have center stage, I'm not doing anything. I can't pressure my opponent. This is doing nothing. I can't really hit them with anything except like a slow projectile, right? So I'd rather be here and be at this distance to pressure my opponent than be center stage, or like similar with like a platform, right? Like I could control this platform here, but if my opponent's here, this platform control isn't doing anything for me right now. You could think of it like a priority system where it's most important to keep a certain distance to your opponent, then you prioritize stage control, center stage mostly, and then you prioritize platform control. And if you watch top level matches, you'll see this all the time. There's a lot of nuance to it we can't cover in this exact moment, but when you're playing, think to yourself, where should I be on the stage? Let's talk a little about strategies. When it comes to playing each matchup, you're gonna basically have to apply all these concepts and understand your opponent's character to play neutral, right? You can kind of look at the chart from the last video about different character archetypes and think about how these concepts apply, right? Like, where does my opponent want to be? Are they a combo heavy character? Are they like a spacing character? Are they fast and can take stage control quickly? Are they looking to hit these falling aerials? Do they have good rising aerials? Does their projectile let them close the gap or control space? Are they good at controlling platforms? There's so many things to apply, but just thinking to yourself, what is my opponent's basic character archetype? What is my basic character archetype? Will help you a lot. A good rule of thumb also is most characters have a win condition, whether it's hitting a certain move, maybe their character's really good at ledge trapping, or they have a really strong setup, they want to hit like a buff or something. You generally want to play to your win condition, whatever it is, and to avoid your opponent's win condition, whatever that is. And finally, there is a concept I want to go over quickly called tempo. The best way to think of tempo is how fast or slow are you playing, right? Are you trying to be aggressive tempo player or defensive? And it's very important playing is to read your opponent's tempo. Like, are they aggressive? Are they fast? Or are they slow? Do they try to wait for you to make mistakes? Are they kind of taking space at a more safe pace? Something that really good players do is switching up tempo, where a lot of good players can go from, you know, an aggressive play style to a defensive play style, back and forth, and make the opponent not sure what their strategy is at that moment, what their tempo is, what they're trying to do. So just keep that in mind when you're playing. Like, if you feel like you're getting predictable, why is that? Are you always playing to a certain pace? Or if you can't read the opponent, what's going on? Are they playing at a certain speed? Do they have a certain strategy they're playing towards, or a certain move? And since Ultimate is a game with 80 plus characters, there's a lot to work with there, but hopefully this gets you thinking a little bit. But yeah, and in summary, really, I'll tell you when you're trying to get better at this game in neutral, try to apply like a couple things. Don't apply all the things in this video at once. Try to apply like 1 or 2 things at a time, and when you feel comfortable with that, move on to the next things. And if there's one good rule of thumb, it is important to try and stay in range where you can attack the opponent while staying out of the range the opponent can attack you. Whether that's through like the range of your attacks, projectiles, the speed of your movement, or other things. If you visualize the game in terms of bubbles of, well, I think it's HBox's bubble theory. You visualize the game in terms of bubbles and ranges that are good for you and not good for your opponent, you'll figure out a lot about the game. Alright guys, and with that, that's my second video. The Buzz, signing off. Catch you later.